G'day, fans, and welcome back to the second last episode of Talking Stuff for the year. It's hot, it's sweaty, and I tell you what, that's not just Aaron, that's actually the world outside. Everything's going off in the sci-fi world. It's very, very exciting. Mr. Aaron, how you going, old son?
It sounds like there's a whole ecosystem underneath my clothes going on at the moment. That's what it feels like. It's been a busy, hot, and sticky week. How about you?
Busy, hot, and sticky week. Absolutely fantastic. I'll tell you what, there's so much going on. It's completely Burko, right? There's like things happening here, things happening there. We've got science fiction stuffs coming out of the wazoo. And of course, Christmas is just around the corner. And next week will be our final episode of the year, fans. So just so you're aware of that. But before we get to the end of this episode into next week's episode, let's talk about what's going on here. Now, let's first things first, Mr. Aaron. I sent you a message about this last night, but I actually got around to watching Transformers 1. I've got to say, as a non-Transformers person, I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't know there was a history between Optimus Prime and the other guy's name I've forgotten already, Megatron. And I didn't realize they were the best of friends and all the rest of it, and it all went completely pear-shaped after a period of time. So I just wanted to start off by saying Transformers 1, especially if you're a bit of a Transformers ignoramus like I am, I actually really, really enjoyed it. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that, old son.
I haven't actually seen it yet. I wanted to see it at the cinema, but it wasn't really there long enough, and then I didn't have time. One of the big things with me, I never have enough time to watch all the things I'd love to see. I've only heard good reviews about it, so I will catch up on the holidays at some point with that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, fans out there, even if you're not a Transformers fan, like you're completely ignorant about it, it's well worth watching. Maybe as a non-Transformers fan, that actually kind of works because I bet people who really know the ins and outs of a duck's guts, so to speak, regarding Transformers will go, wait, that's wrong. They've changed that. But I had no idea. And I found it actually almost difficult to predict where it was going to go. So I actually found it very entertaining, very enjoyable. So comes highly recommended, fans, if you want to check it out. It is an animated 3D animated film. So it is a very, very groovy, Mr. Aaron. What do you reckon?
Yeah, one of the things you reviewed last week was the Fans Strike Back, and I've been seeing a lot of feedback through the week for it, and I did have to have a laugh. One of the ads I saw them put out was a queue of people outside the event, and they've put on the ad a total sellout, meaning it's sold out. But it hasn't sold out, of course, so all the comments underneath were quite funny. We're like, yeah, this is a total sellout. In a negative view. So a lot of the people who have been seeing it had the same opinion that you had.
There you go. Very, very groovy. Chrissy, join us, geeky guys. Oh, okay. That's a Are we geeky? Are we there, dude? What do you think? Do you class yourself as a geek?
I'll take that. Yeah, that's a compliment for me.
Very, very cool. All right, fans, I've got a fantastic story I've got to share with you. A whole lot of people haven't even joined yet, so they're going to be missing this fantastic story. But guess what? Now, for those who remember last week, we mentioned that there was going to be a bit of an event at your store, outside the store, in the cafe next door, if that makes any sense. Big celebratory Christmas drinks for the cafe that's next door to your shop where we do our sunny Saturdays. Well, as it turned out, a whole lot of people were there. I was there. One of our regular viewers, Dicko, was there. And there was a young lady there as well. And as the night progressed, as you can imagine, there's a lot of the fluids being drunk. And of course, everybody's very, very happy. Very, very gay, as it were, having a really, really good time. But of course, they end up having to go home. So what happens is Dicko, being the gentlemanly man that he is, invites this lady back to his place. Now, they've been friends for a long time, so just be aware of that, fans. Actually puts her... What?
Let me point this out. He invited her back because she had drunk and he didn't want her driving.
Well, yeah, who cares about that? Anyway, so he puts her in his bed, okay? He's doing the gentlemanly thing. He's on the floor. She's in the bed. Completely drunk as a monkey, right? And funnily enough, Michael here, he actually was there last Friday, so he got to see all this. So I don't know if he knows this story. All is going wonderful until 2:30 in the morning, fans. What do you think happens to said drunk woman in the bed? She wakes up. She's about to lose a load. She's about to have a Huey and Ralph, a Technicolor yawn, a liquid laugh. I tell you what, she's about to completely burst, bring up the day's takings. And the very first thing that she needs in the bedroom, which is Dicko's bedroom, she's going, I need something to lose my load in. And the thing that she grabs first is a bag. And the bag she grabs is this. Yes, the old Star Wars exhibition bag from 1982. And as it turns out, as she's completely losing her load within said bag, Dicko did his best Darth Vader impersonation. No! Oh, dude. And of course, we've discussed this bag from the exhibition. This is the Adelaide version a few episodes ago. And when Dicko sent me that story, I absolutely laughed my head off. What do you reckon, dude? Mate,
Well,
that's what you call going with the force. What do you think?
I actually think when you have stories like that, it increases the value of the object because it gets a bit of history and a bit of a story to it. So in that case, because we've had that story to it, I think the bag is worth more. Do you know after that he went and got the damn thing framed?
No, he cleaned it first, you idiot. So he actually
Yes.
said to me, he was like, because the thing is probably worth a lot of money. So for those who don't know, it was for the Star Wars exhibition held in Maya in around 1981, 82. We had it here in Melbourne. Obviously, they had it in Adelaide. And these plastic bags, even though they would have printed thousands of them, like there are just none left anywhere in the world. And so he was absolutely spewing, so to speak, that she decided to lose her load within said bag. And he said at 2:30 in the morning, he's out there hosing the bag. Right, forget about her. Doesn't care about her at all. He's hosing the bag out to try and clean it, and since has had it framed. And I thought, well, if only that bag thought, oh yes, holding Boba Fett figures inside it was the greatest story it ever had to hear or ever had to tell. But in fact, actual fact, it occurred in 2024 last weekend. What do you reckon, dude?
Well, the other thing that you didn't add, when Dicko told me the story, she woke up and she was shocked as well because she saw his massive inflatable Shane Warne looming over her too.
That is very, very true. But Warnie didn't get the spew chucked on him. In fact, it just went in the bag. So she just grabbed the first bag she could find. Dicko just leaving it laying around and just said, ah! And here we go. Oh, dear. And that's just a magnificent story. So I had to share that one, which I think is absolutely awesome. I like it. Yeah, sell it on eBay. What's that smell? It's the age of the plastic. Yes, exactly right. You go, why does it smell like red wine and like, and fish and corn chips and stuff like that? Why does it have that 2024 sort of waft about it?
Have you ever
Unbelievable.
borrowed a book from the library? And it's a weird thing when you flick through it and it smells like vomit. It's one of the inks, I think. Not every book, but maybe 1 in 100. Maybe it's not the ink. Maybe they're all Dicko's dates.
Maybe, I tell you what, but how's that for a story? It's absolutely, there's a longer version of it, but we'll just stick with that just for now. Anyway, Dicko's not with us, but I said I was going to share that tale because that was just too good to pass up. Anyway, with that in mind, we're going to move on to other things. And for that, I've got to press this button. All right, very, very cool. There's a lot to cover off, so let's get into it, fans. What can I say? It's okay. The alcohol sanitized the bag. Actually, yeah, exactly. She was sitting right next to me, so she was really like plowing through the vines. It was a very, very groovy. Things coming up. There's another Section 31 trailer that's been released because it's actually the film. It's being released on January the 24th next year. Did you get to see this, Mr. Aaron, as a sort of wet your whistle for Section 31 that's coming out regarding Star Trek?
For me, I did see it and I thought it looks like a lot of Star Trek aliens in a trailer for something else because it still doesn't give me that Star Trek vibe. I was impressed to see a Charon. That was one of those half white, half black guys that were in one episode of Star Trek in the 60s. I thought it was very cool. It's streaming on the 23rd of January, so 24th, so we don't have very long to wait. I will definitely watch it. I'm curious about how it will be. What about you?
Oh, look, I agree with you. It's a lot of flash and dazzle. There's a lot of stuff. I didn't really sort of pay that much attention to it. Trailers don't really work for me because they tend to be very formulaic, but it's like, oh, yeah, look, give it a whirl. Obviously, yeah, check it out when it comes out and see what happens. But for those who haven't seen it, it's out and about and you can have a look and it's all very, very groovy. So I just thought I'd just chuck it in because it only just came out a day or two ago, which I thought was kind of cool. And for those who aren't aware where the name Section 31 comes from, I know a lot of people know about Star Trek, but it's actually referenced here. So as it says, the name is taken from Starfleet Charter Article 14, Section 31, which allows Starfleet to take extraordinary measures in the face of extreme threats, including sabotage, assassination, and even biological warfare. So just for those who didn't know what the deal was. On a completely unrelated note, Russell has said, any Blake 7, I haven't got anything. So unless there's something you want to chuck in, but I don't think there's anything floating around except for the Blu-ray release of recent times.
Local Blu-ray releases out anytime now as well for anyone who is after it. Biological warfare, that's what happened to the bag.
It did, actually. Absolutely fantastic. Russell said, Section 31 is not a catchy title. If you're a Star Trek fan, it is, but if you're the general public, I agree it's not. Straight to streaming, yes, Paramount Plus. It's not getting a cinematic release, so, and it is
Yeah.
actually meant to be a film. As to what happens after that is anybody's
Do
guess.
you know what? If Colin is watching, he should contract Paramount and say he's the head of Oztrek and they want to organise a local premiere in a cinema here. Go for that, Colin, if you're listening.
Absolutely fantastic. And Chrissy said it looks like a sequel to The Fifth Element. Okay, yeah. Very flashy, very dazzly. But yes, I mean, all power to it, and we'll just see what how it all goes. Now, this one popped up today, like a couple of days ago, and I don't know if even you've heard of this one, right? Believe it or not, now I had to do some reading on this. And I thought, where did this come from? News has come out that Paul McCartney was planning to make a science fiction movie in 1974. Did you know? Did you know this, dude?
No, I knew the Beatles were going to do Lord of the Rings at one point, so it doesn't really surprise me. But I hadn't heard this news before. So what's it all about? Tell us, Dags.
So what happened is that when Paul McCartney was involved with Wings, he came up. He and Linda McCartney, they were smoking the wacky tobacco big time, and they said, "Let's come up with a science fiction movie." So, but of course, they couldn't do it themselves, so they actually got in cahoots with Isaac Asimov, and between the two of them, they were going to work out this entire thing, right? But of course, Asimov couldn't really connect with Paul's ideas, and it all sort of just went nowhere. But it was going to be called 5 and 5 and 1. And the treatment, like it's just a treatment. There's no like script or anything, right? So this is what the treatment was. This is one Paul McCartney's words. A flying saucer lands. Out of it gets 5 creatures. They transmute before your very eyes into Wings, the band. Okay, they are here to take over Earth by taking America by storm, and they proceed to do this supergroup style. Meanwhile, back in the sticks of Britain lives the original group, whose personalities are being used by the aliens. So the idea is that it's meant to be they're aliens, but they represent Wings, the band. So now Asimov apparently said that they could use music, the aliens, to unlock all their emotions, and all kind of went a bit pear-shaped. And they found documents regarding this entire thing in Asimov's archives, even though he's been dead for like nearly 30 years now. So, but Paul and Asimov, they didn't really connect, and he didn't go anywhere. But there you go. How good is that, dude?
Well, I'm pretty sure the final alien invasion would have taken place on the Mull of Kintyre. So I don't know. It is one of those things that's been done by a few bands before. If you go forward a little bit, you had Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, which kind of embodied alien rock bands. And if you come forward, I hate to bring them up in this conversation, but Duran Duran released a movie called Into the Arena, which basically was a sequel to Barbarella, all in rock video form, where at a concert, Duran Duran were fighting the evil Dr. Duran Duran, who was trying to take over the world through their music. So it isn't a unique situation that bands do that as a concept.
True. I like this one. Russell says that sounds unbelievably crap. And Jeffro, I'd rather watch Battlefield Earth. Oh, come on, guys. Give the guy a chance. He writes some of the best music the world's ever heard, comes up with a story. Give the guy a go.
I wonder if that would have kind of led into the Venus and Mars album, because that did have some science fiction type overtones to it.
I don't actually know. Just got to wind the conversation back. Ads has said Section 31 is a film. Yes, it is. It is a film, not a TV series. Kiss and Attack of the Phantoms. That's another one involving abandoned movies. Have you actually seen Kiss and Attack of the Phantoms?
Yeah, I'm still trying to erase that and ABBA the movie from my mind, because they're both pretty average.
So when it comes to Kiss and Attack of the Phantoms, I think I'd rather watch Battlefield. It was pretty crap. I mean, so anyway, so obviously they've had a bit of a smoke, but of course this is pre-Star Wars back in 74. So they obviously thought that there was going to be something building up science fiction-wise. And don't forget The Man Who Fell to Earth was sort of around that time period as well. So may have been onto something. You never know. So, yes, but the idea of the band ultimate, being aliens impersonating the band. Yeah, go on.
The ultimate of that kind of could be Josie and the Pussycats from Outer Space, which had the band. And there was an episode of The Tomorrow People called The Hearts of Soggoth, which had bands controlling, a drum beat controlling the youth of Britain. So if we could have done a whole episode on on rock and roll science fiction, couldn't we?
How do you
You'd have
remember
loved
that?
that. You love you love talking about this stuff, don't you?
Oh, mate, what can I say? It's just, I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. Has anyone actually seen Battlefield Earth? Yes, I have. I actually didn't mind
Yes.
it, except for the end. It was pretty crap at the end, but the rest of it wasn't too bad. That's a discussion for another time. Speaking of movies and things that have come out, now this one I think came out a couple of months ago, but I watched it last night because I read about it, and I was intrigued. Now, I mean, it's called Subservience with Megan Fox, and I do like the catchphrase up there, "Don't turn her on," right? You can interpret that any way you want. Now you haven't. I'm assuming you haven't seen this. Is that right?
Dags, it's a science fiction movie where a little girl convinces her father to get Megan Fox as a replacement for his wife. Of course, I have seen this.
I like the fact that it's the little girl who picks Megan Fox, not the bloke. So, and then the guy actually complains to his missus, saying, "I didn't pick her. The kid picked her."
She did.
The thing about Subservience, and like, admittedly, towards the end, it's very Terminator-ish and blah 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 blah. Pushing all that aside, it really brings that forward, that discussion about artificial intelligence taking over people's lives. The idea is a bit like iRobot taken a step further. So in this case, the robots look like normal people, and of course, Megan Fox looks like Megan Fox. And you can clearly see that is, if it comes to pass that this sort of stuff actually happens, and as we've seen in Japan, they're really pushing that, it is not a good thing. Right. So if anything, you're going to have robots in houses. They've got to look like robots. They can't afford to look like human beings like they do in Westworld. So it's well worth checking out from that perspective only, to say, how do people deal with their emotions when they're dealing with artificial intelligence, which is trying to please them. I really enjoyed it, actually. I thought it was quite good, even though, as I said, the ending was a bit wanky. What did you think about it, dude?
I saw it a couple of months ago. I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't a really deep movie. It was just a good afternoon science fiction if you want to watch something like that. I saw connections to a lot of things. It goes right back to AI, I guess, and the artificial intelligence. And there's been a couple of series. Is it a Nearly Human or like there was a BBC series that had some very similar tones. I kind of think it is absolutely true. If we made AI, we would make beautiful people. No one's going to look like the freak from Prisoner, are they, if they get an AI person? And it is one of those things where it's about human hubris and lust and greed, and then also AI and the way artificial intelligence goes wrong in all the dystopian things we seem to make. It's got a lot of successful story elements in it, and Megan Fox.
Yeah. And for those who are wondering, yes, you do see her in her underwear. I mean, they couldn't, but it works for the story. That's the funny thing about it. So, it's intriguing. And of course, it comes down to that old adage: regardless of how good your technology is, it'll always find a way to break down, right? Or go a bit skew. If they no matter how hard they try, they just can't stop that from happening. So.
And I do have to bring it up again. I did think it was hilarious. It was the little girl who picked her, not the dad. I mean, come on. If you were the dad, you're going, oh yes. You're not going, oh, I really don't think we should bring home the Megan Fox model.
Yeah, you can still see this. The dad saying to the little girl, "You picked her, awesome!" And even the wife later on, because the wife is in hospital, says, "I thought you were going to pick somebody who looked like Alfred." And he said, "The girl picked it. Don't blame me." So, hey, little girl, I'll slip you a 50 later on. So it is all very, very groovy. So, but well worth checking out from that perspective. I mean, we had artificial intelligence, AI, artificial intelligence from the early 2000s. The Steven Spielberg Kubrick movie. This is like a sort of a continuation of that. So all the warning signs are there. It's just like it's going to come to reality at some point. It's just kind of nuts. So,
and the other thing, Jeff's brought up, it was Almost Human. It's worth checking out. Unfortunately, it kind of just ends though. Didn't get a new series after about 3 seasons. Never, ever, ever, ever sleep with the artificial intelligence, because it sends it Looney Tunes and it can't handle emotions. That's the one key thing in all of these movies and series, isn't it?
Yes, there's one thing you want from your artificial human beings, your AI robots, is they've got to be anatomically correct in all ways, shapes and forms. Why is anybody's guess? So there you go. Very, very cool. Now, this is what you call fantastic timing, right? So Moneybags has joined us. Greetings, programs. And you've just joined us at the right time, because guess what we're going to be discussing now? This.
Doctor Who! Hey! The TARDIS! Doctor Who! Hey! The TARDIS!
He's just joined us, and now he's probably just going to leave us. Yes, we've got to have a little bit of Docky Who. Absolutely fantastic, because the trailer for the Christmas special came out, Mr. Aaron. I reckon you're like chomping at the bit to talk about this.
I do have to say, it is funny he turned up right at the end of the discussion of Megan Fox and sleeping with artificial intelligence. The Doctor Who Christmas special dropped. It's going to be a timey-wimey Stephen Moffat one with Silurians and the Doctor not with a companion. The special effects look great. It looks very Christmassy with the snow and the season and talking about Christmas. It's only a couple of weeks till it's on, so not long to wait for everyone who's hanging out for it. So yeah, it is what it is. We'll have to see if it continues the roller coaster of the amazingly good or amazingly bad stories we had through the last season.
Well, I'm waiting for you to ask me if I'll be watching it.
Oh, you'll be watching it because we're doing a special DNA reviews on it the day after.
Yeah, right. Turning off now. That's exactly what I'll be doing. Doesn't interest me in the absolute slightest. I tell you what, I'd rather be watching Megan Fox movies. So
that's actually what Megan Fox said, turning off now, but she didn't. She was lying.
Don't turn her on. I mean, what a catchphrase. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Anyway, so Docky Who, Christmas time. Whoopee chook. So there you go. Very, very cool. I'm glad somebody out here, out of the two of us, is excited about that. Speaking of excitement, this is a bit of news that came through, and I'm sitting there, I'm just scratching my head over this one, right? China has put out an unstoppable real-life RoboCop on patrol to chase criminals at 34 kilometers an hour. It's a ball, dude. Part man, part machine, all ball. How good is that? Can't make a movie about that, can you?
I hope it's a Zeroid. That would be very cool, from Terrorhawks, wouldn't it? No one knows what I'm talking about. Maybe Jethro and Russell know. But the Zeroids were kind of before we had BB-8. There was another spherical robot in kids' shows, and they were called Zeroids. Jerry Anderson, one of his, I guess, later series, but it was from the 80s. When I saw that, that's what I was thinking. Oh, you've actually got like the Zeroids going around patrolling China.
Mate, what can I say? They're literally on a roll over there. So how good up there? You just run up the stairs. Look at this one. It's the testicular note. Oh dear. Christy Canagubs, I actually have no idea, but that's a very good point. I just saw that and I go, oh my God, they've got a real RoboCop, and you go, it's just a freaking beach ball, man.
How come criminals can't just roll it away?
Oh, I don't know, dude. I tell you what. I assume it's true. I don't know. Anyway, make of that what you will. But I saw that and I go, I'm going to have a bit of laugh at that. So BB-8's coming to life for absolute real. One of the last pictures I got to show, I saw this. It's one of those things that people come up with crazy jokes and you go, you know what, this is kind of working for me. Interested in time travel, meet here last Thursday at 7:00. I have no idea where that came from. Oh, dear. What do you reckon, dude?
Yeah, I like all those temporal anomaly jokes. That one is really cool.
That is very, very cool. And luckily this is the last thing we've got to talk about. Now, of course, this is a bit of a big deal because 2 weeks ago we had our special Sunny Saturdays. This is where we get everybody to turn up to the store, your shop, but go to the cafe next door for a bit of a catch-up, for a bit of the old coffees, collectibles, and cholesterol. 11:30 this Saturday. The problem is, fans, it's the grand finale. It's the very last one. The owners are selling up. This is what the Christmas party was for last week. And this will be the last sunny Saturdays that we have, where we get to sit outside. It's going to be 26 degrees, beautiful sunny day. Pop into Aaron's store, buy some collectibles, then come out for a bit of a hangout with a whole bunch of people, including myself and my other half, Lynn, and Sunny, and possibly Dicko. And it'll be our last one because after this, the cafe is closing down to be refurbished for the new owners. So if you've got nothing on, and it doesn't cost anything, we're just sitting outside, chin wagging as it were, and it should be absolutely fantastic. And unlike 2 weeks ago when Aaron wasn't in the store, this time he will be in the store, and we have to make sure that he feels jealous as we laugh our heads off having a great time outside. What do you reckon, dude?
Yeah, last week you confused me because you said there was going to be a special Chrissy Sunny Saturdays. I didn't realize you were talking about Christmas. I thought you were talking about Christy coming down for one, and then she came last week and I was like, oh no, she's come on the wrong day. So I was a bit confused, but that happens to me sometimes when you talk.
Yeah, well, you know what? I confuse myself all the time, so don't worry about it. So if you've got nothing on, fans, for those who are watching, obviously those who watch it and replay after the fact, you'll miss out, or you live in another country. But if you've got nothing on, come on down and just hang out with the gang. Should be a good fun. Do it when the new cafe opens. We don't know what they're doing. There could be, apparently it's going to be shut for 3 months. So
Yeah.
so we can't assume that they're going to have outdoor seating or anything like that. So, but it's the last one it'll be on, and it should be a bit of fun. So, Sunny Saturdays, yay team, which is a very, very good. Even Karan is not with us at the moment. He's got his own show on at this time of the night. He'll be there having a chat about all things that are fantastic. What do you reckon, dude?
Well, even Karan has moved, so it's harder for him to get to Blackburn
True.
as well. So it's the end of an era.
It is actually absolutely fantastic. Speaking of eras, believe it or not, we're going to have a bit of a quick natter, and it is actually only a quick natter about sci-fi movies from the 80s. Now, normally what would happen is that we'll just cycle through a whole lot of pictures, talk about whatever movies pop up. But this time we're going to leave it to the audience to bring up some movies that they want to discuss. And because otherwise we just sort of just roll through it. There's a million movies that came out in the 80s, absolutely fantastic sci-fi ones, of course. So if people want us to bring up anything in particular, feel free to scream out. And before we went on air, actually, Mr. Aaron, you picked up with one, which I actually only watched a few weeks ago, My Science Project, which one of those classic 80s teenagers who aren't teenagers in real life, they're absolutely adults, running around causing havoc on their little town. This is an awesome movie, man.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. I remember that was the first movie I'd seen a plasma ball in, which I thought was this amazing piece of Hollywood special effects until it turned up in Granny Maze and What's New Everywhere about a year later. But did you know this was the first movie, I think, made by Buena Vista, the offshoot of Disney, because they wanted it to be a PG-13 movie rather than a not PG-13, like a Disney family movie. I think it's the first Disney movie to have swearing in. And also taught me how you can get high by smoking bananas.
Really? Oh, okay. Smoking bananas. Oh, that sounds very, very cool. Yeah, so it's kind of dated now, and I like it because the main guy, I remember him from Christine, but it's still a bit of shits and giggles and a bit of a laugh. But yeah, it's very, very 80s by a long shot. Michael said, where's the sequel to Buckaroo Banzai? I don't know, but you've got Buckaroo Banzai stuff. Now, Jeffro's watching this. He's a huge fan of Buckaroo Banzai. I think he even ran his own fan club at one point. I've only seen this once, and that was 40 years ago, and I do not remember it at all. Your memory's pretty damn good. Were you a bit of a fan of the old Buckaroo Banzai?
Yeah, I loved it. I haven't seen it. The last time I watched it was when it came out on DVD, so that's got to be 20 years ago. I always thought that they got the design of Alf from the spaceships in Buckaroo Banzai because they just look like his face. I remember when I first saw it, it was a bit confusing. When you see it later, there are so many other science fiction movies that take bits and pieces from this, including Back to the Future and some other quite popular ones. The design work is really cool. It still holds up. It's got a really cool eclectic cast and the characters are all amazing. Very hard to get any merchandise for. Before eBay, you could get nothing in Australia at all. After eBay, you could get the storybook and the Viewmasters, and that's about it. But I'm sure Jeff has more.
I just love the fact that it's got this ridiculously long title, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Adventures Across the Eighth Dimension, or whatever it's called. That yeah, on a label for a videotape, that's a damn long label. So, yes, very, very, very cool.
John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd. It's got some good pedigree in there.
Yeah, I think Jeff Goldblum was in it as well. I just remember seeing it, and I just didn't get it at all. But Jeff Rowe's a huge fan of it, and Team Bonsai, yay! I think it's one of those eclectic movies that if you're either a gigantic fan or you just don't like it at all, there's no real middle ground. So,
and following today's theme, they were a rock band, a sci-fi rock band.
Yes, they were. Oh shit, Jeffro, what's the name of the band? No, I need someone to tell me what was the name of the band, because Buckaroo Banzai, he's singing in the band. He actually stops playing to talk to a girl.
I want to say something like the Crazy 88s or something, but that's from Kill Bill. But I haven't seen it. I can't remember.
Okay, if someone can find us the answer, what was the name of the band in Buckaroo Banzai? That's actually, I hadn't thought of that, which is actually very, very cool. Speaking of other movies that came out in the 80s, and this one was a remake of something from the 50s, Hong Kong Cavaliers. Thank you very much. What did you say? You weren't even remotely close,
that
dude.
That wasn't even close, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
So,
Now, this
but
was
did
a
you know an
remake.
interesting
What?
fact?
What?
Buckaroo Banzai was produced by Paul McCartney.
Is that why I'd rather watch Battlefield Earth? So there you go. Make of that what you will. Now, I'm going to say it's a remake of a movie from the 1950s, and you're going, oh my God, it's clearly The Fly. And it's not. It's actually The Blob. I really liked the remake of The Blob. And I tell you what, it was as scary as all hell, because The Blob itself was actually like really like mobile in the show, and it really got really large. It was a lot more. The visual effects were really, really cool. And it has some awesome sequences in it. Now, how well do you remember the remake of The Blob, dude?
I absolutely love this. It's, I think, Toby Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and a couple of other Life Force and things like that. Didn't he direct this? I could be totally wrong on that.
No, it's written
He
down there.
didn't.
Chuck Russell was the director. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I am totally wrong. One of the coolest things I've seen a fan edit of Ghostbusters 2, where the slime from Ghostbusters 2 does all this crazy stuff, but it's the Blob that's doing it from this movie. So it kind of got a second life on YouTube with some of that stuff as well. What I liked about this, it was actually quite gory. It was one of those movies I saw at the cinema when it came out, and I was a bit shocked at how explicit the gore and some of the nudity was as well.
It has a very, very good sequence, which is really, really frightening, where you got the lady who's being chased by the Blob. She gets into a telephone box, right? And as she's trying to ring up the police officer to rescue her, the whole Blob covers the box. And then you see bits of his face within the Blob itself, pushed against the glass. So she's got absolutely no hope at all. And you look at that and you go, mate, you are so juicy fruit. There's like no solution. You are completely stuffed. So it has some really, really good moments, and it's very, very 80s. But I tell you what, fans, as a remake, I actually thought it was really, really good and well worth checking out. Even Greg loved The Blob as well, which is very cool. One of the other movies that you brought up, now we have actually discussed this before on another show, but you just mentioned it, and I thought I'll chuck it up here because we're dealing with a bit of eclectic stuff at the moment. Is good old Life Force. Now, I know Colin Russell's a big fan of that, and Matilda May at the top. As we said, when you're a teenage boy, she's the perfect actress, doesn't say a single word, is completely naked the whole way through. It's got all Life Force, the British sci-fi program and the space program doing its thing with space vampires. Very, very cool.
And the crazy thing about that picture, if you've chosen of the space vampire, I don't know if you've seen it. It only dropped yesterday. The trailer for 28 Years Later has just come out. And it's going to be huge. It got 6 million views overnight, which is pretty big for a horror trailer. But Cillian Murphy, who is back for this one, they show him, and he is one of the infected, and he looks very, very like that that space vampire in the little tiny scene they show.
Very, very cool. I agree with Russell. It wasn't bad, but no one remembers it. I totally agree, right? It's the 50s version that people want, and and it makes a great deal of sense too. Also, in the Blob remake, the Blob is not an alien. It's actually some kind of biological weapon that they've created, and away they go from that. Now, this one, Jeffro mentioned the other day that he hadn't seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, but he had seen 2010, the year we made contact. I love this film as a sequel, but it was so vastly removed from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was almost, Kubrick must have been crying his eyes out when he saw this. Had synthesized music and sound effects in space and action and all this sort of shit. It really didn't fit the original movie at all. But as a standalone film, it was actually quite good. So what do you reckon, dude? 2010, did it work for you or not?
Well, I'm pretty sure, like a lot of people from my generation, I saw this before I saw the original. So I saw this when it came out at the cinema, and I dug the music because I'm into synthesizers and the sort of whole 80s new wave stuff. And the most disappointing thing for me, when I finally saw the original, this started with the quote from the book, "My God, it's full of stars." And I presume that's how the original ended. And the original ended without that quote. So I was waiting the whole movie to hear it, and it was a letdown. So, spoiler alert, that isn't at the end of the original.
Absolutely true. And the funny thing about it, of course, in 1984, in the real 1984, when the movie was made, obviously America and Russia were right, and they're still in the middle of the Cold War, and there's a lot of little bad tension between them. When you got to the real 2010, aside from the fact no one had gone into space at all except for the ISS, the Russians are all friends. So if you get to the real 2010, you go, well, you watch 2010 in 2010, and you go, well, that makes no sense. There's no Soviet Union. The Russians are the good guys. Who knew what would happen 25 years later, or 15 years later? But that's another story. So,
well,
there you go.
they're the good guy, unless Hotline is watching tonight. Then
Very good point. Now, I didn't mean to. Yeah, all right. I'm not talking about certain individuals. I'm going to just shut up right now. But yes, because the whole Soviet Union thing crashed in the late 80s, early 90s, it kind of meant like 2010 didn't really match anything at all. Another film that come up, and of course, this is actually an absolute classic. And classic, I'm using that term loosely because most people have forgotten this. Was good old Enemy Mine. Two dudes stuck on a planet, mortal enemies. Louis Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid doing their thing. Mr. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this one, son?
I absolutely love this movie, and I just watched a documentary on it, and one of the things that blew my mind is the last act of the movie was changed by the producers because they didn't get they didn't think that the audience would understand Enemy Mine as a title, so they had to put the pirates having the mine in it to make an enemy mine at the end of the movie.
Okay. Okay. There you go. I didn't know that. I was. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
You remember at the end, there's this tacked on bit where there's this mine with all like the space pirates, and that was tacked on by the studio because they didn't think the audience would understand enemy mine was like my enemy. They had to have an enemy mine in it.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh, there you go. Well, you know what? That would have been for American audiences, I would have thought, but unbelievable. Yes. Moneybags has said some of his favorite movies are Last Starfighter. That goes without saying. Tron, Transformers, the movie Aliens, Flash Gordon, and good old Dunny, which is very, very cool. A lot of famous stuff there. For the promo of this show, this episode, I used Ripley from Aliens because I thought if you had to pick what you thought was the best, and we're talking about non-Star Wars, non-Star Trek movies here. I forgot to mention that at the start. The best science fiction movie of the 1980s. And there's a lot of good stuff. It's not easy to pick, but I would say my personal choice, I think Aliens is the best of everything that came out in the 80s. Just in terms of the quality, the story, the style, the way it was done. I reckon that's just the ants pants. I don't know if you have an opinion on that at all.
There are so many good sci-fi fantasy movies in the 80s. I just find it very hard to pick one. I would say on one day of the week, I would say it was Aliens, because it is such a classic and it's got everything. I think the ones that are the best ones are the ones that have, cultural significance. And you can see that movie and there was nothing like it before it. And after that came out, there was a million knockoffs of Space Marines and Aliens. So anything that has that much influence isn't just a good movie, but I love because it gives me other movies in that genre that I can enjoy as well. So be them the Roger Corman knockoffs, which have their own charm, or the really, really high budget ones that kind of go up against it. Alien is a seminal movie, and Aliens is a direction no one thought it would take that has inspired so many other great movies as well.
Yeah, I look upon Aliens as being the one film that there are no fast forward moments at all. The whole thing from the very beginning right to the very end is just like it just completely captivated the whole way through, which is cool. As opposed to some of the others that came out in that particular era, even Michael's agreed Aliens was one of the best. Well, I'm just going to chuck in one more because we actually have to move on, which is actually cool. And I thought, we're dealing with left of field movies because as when Moneybags come up with his list, I mean, most of those get covered off a fair bit. The Abyss, or otherwise known as The Abscess, came out right at the end of the 80s. Good old James Cameron. And I tell you what, if you ever wanted to watch a drowning scene in a movie, this will absolutely give you nightmares. But what did you think of The Abyss? This was a bit of hard work, old son, but I tell you what, it was really, really well done.
Was that Mary Elizabeth Mastroianni? I can't remember her name.
Yes.
That's right. She had a lot of problems with that scene because she thought that the James Cameron as a director took it too far and it was too method acting. But it is an unbelievably realistic scene. It is one of those things where you are absolutely riveted by the performance. Most people would know there were two totally different versions of The Abyss. And the first version of The Abyss is a good movie, and it's made sort of more memorable because of the water tentacle, which was one of the first uses of realistic CGI in a movie. The restored version that James Cameron released about 5 years later is much longer, and it's a long movie anyway, but it's a much better movie with a whole subplot added with invasion, not from space, but from beneath the oceans, and basically arms deals and trying to ensure global peace. So it's really one of those. If you've seen the original, it's good, but after you've seen the extended version, you probably don't go back and ever watch the original version again.
Very true. And Ed Harris, who was in it, will not talk about his experience working on it at all. So it's one of those things. Unfortunately, there are some movies in history that are like that, like a really, really difficult time making them, but the end result kind of made up for it. So yeah.
Some more trivia. There are areas in the world that the movie can't be released because when they put the rat into the breathable fluid, it was for real. And even though it didn't hurt the rat was distressed. And there are certain laws now where you can't be cruel to animals like that. So there are regions. James Cameron refused to edit that from the movie. So there are some regions you can't buy that movie.
Yeah, and it's all up in close-up too, which is not ideal. So anyway, so guess what? That's the end of our ratings chat. Okay, we've gotten through a bit of a quick bit of gurgling. I need to move on to a couple of other things before we finish up for the night, which is absolutely fantastic. This one will definitely have your head scratching, Mr. Aaron, because it's now time for this.
A question.
All right, so there we go. We've only got a couple of these segments left. It's absolutely fantastic. Okay, Mr. Aaron, here's the question for you, old son. Let's get back to my actual page. Here we go. So the question for you is, could aliens from another planet successfully integrate and live in a human society?
Well, that's a really interesting question because we're looking at that from a lot of different angles. Are we talking about an entire planet load of aliens turns up and says our planet has been destroyed and we're here to live with you? Or is it one spaceship of aliens turns up and say we're here as ambassadors, as an exchange program, and there's 20 of us come to live?
So in this instance, if you have one alien, right?
Yeah.
They're not seen as a threat. They just go, beauty. It's a gimmick, right? It's something unique, and it's like if you look at Escape from Planet of the Apes, 3 apes, they're like superstars. So in this case, we're talking about an entire 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000, something like that. So there's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty hard to do just because humans can't even live with other religions and other races. If you have someone who you don't know their history, don't know their motivations, and have to take what they say at face value, I just don't think it would work. We might have you might have people who say, yes, you can have the deserts and the areas that humans don't live, but you would still have too many people going, no, we don't want them in our neck of the woods, basically. That said, if the government said we have to do this, we have to integrate people, I can see it being very like V. I think that would probably be the closest to what I could see happening, where you have some people who would integrate and you would have some people that form terrorist groups and try to kill them. It would really depend on how much lead up there was to it. If they started communicating with us and say, hey, this is going to happen in a generation or two, maybe there would be more acceptance. If they all rocked up and there's like aliens in the sky and they're landing on every continent, within a week and trying to say, hey, we're here for good, I think it would be war. Just because, like I said, we can't even live with ourselves. How are we going to live with aliens? The other side of that is the aliens could say, we're here in peace, but we have weapons that could just vaporize the planet if you try and mess with us. And then it would be one of those, you have to lump it kind of pieces. I don't know if it would ever integrate properly. In all the ones I've seen like that, the most realistic ones are probably Alienation, which deals a lot with families integrating. And I think they were mainly made as a analogy for actual immigration rather than a real science fiction thing, because you can watch those on a lot of different levels. So as it stands with humanity as we are, I'd love to say we would all hold hands and it'd be great, but I actually think, no, we would self-destruct.
So comments. Ads has said nope, and it wouldn't be the aliens' fault. I totally agree. I agree with Moneybags on this one. It would certainly depend on what they look like. I think that would make a big difference. If they look like the ones from Alien Nation, then probably. But if they look like the prawns from District 9, then no. And I actually agree with that. People want to say,
Well, what
no,
about-
it's nothing to do with, hang on, it's nothing to do with image, but bullshit. It's all about image. Yeah, go on.
What about if they looked as appearances like the ones from V, but then all your hamsters disappeared?
So, and that's when they talk about the cats and dogs disappearing from certain parts of America. Christy said, we see people unable to assimilate to a new culture, so a whole different life form would take many generations. Agreed. Guy said many different types. I think amazing what we can comprehend, maybe not understand, but definitely comprehension. It depends on how alien the aliens are. That's a very, very, very good point. And of course, you're completely true. Humans can't even integrate with each other. Look what's going on in the world at the moment. Then you bring in like an alien species from another planet. The only thing it may do is actually stop all of humanity's bitching and fighting amongst itself and say, well, okay, let's just concentrate all of our attention, both good and bad, on the newcomers, so to speak, which is an alienation term. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think if aliens were watching the Earth, like up in space watching the Earth, they'd be thinking, no, we've got no hope of trying to find a spot, because even though some people would say yes, there'd be too much distrust. Yeah, go on. Sorry, dude. Go for
it. The other thing that would depend on, and this is funny, but I'm being serious, is how good their food and cuisine is. Because a lot of foreign cultures have come into, white cultures, because we're the ones that tend to be the most racist, and they set up like a Chinatown, or they set up like a little Italy or something like that. And it's very isolated and people are very self-segregating. But once someone gives them a 5-star restaurant review and the food is good, then you get more people going in and saying this is all right and it's okay. So if aliens came down and set up Alpha Centauri Street and it had absolutely amazing food, I think that would be some of the best way to have like slow integration of their society through, people going, oh, the food's pretty good, they're not so bad.
So out with Chinatown, in with Alien Town. Absolutely love it. Michael said they look like the aliens in They Live. Bearing in mind the aliens in They Live did it all very surreptitiously, a bit like the V for visitors in V, until you put the glasses on, you really couldn't see them. But they were people prepared to sort of side with the aliens in They Live, so long as it worked out better for them on a consumerist level, when you get products and whatever. I can't think of the word. So there's definitely that. But there's a whole army of them just turn up one day. What's the deal with that? Very, very true. Good stuff. Hang on. Yes. Or it could bring humanity together like it does in Independence Day, which is kind of ironic. It takes a third party to come in to unite everybody down here, even though it's blatantly obvious that if humans just got along, it wouldn't be an issue. But by the same token, you wouldn't want the innocent party to suddenly be the ones that everybody's now picking on and go, oh, we don't like them, we don't trust them. And as was mentioned earlier, if they did look like the prawns from District 9, not in a million years would they be able to integrate. Unless they could speak. If they could speak English, maybe. Or speak the language of the host nation. Yeah.
Well, we looked at a program earlier in the year called the 3-Body Problem, where there were aliens coming and they were going to integrate, and the Earth had a couple of generations to work it out, and they weren't accepting, like, society starts to crumble because of the thought of having to deal with alien coming and living with us. So I think that would probably happen. And no one would even be able to decide. I think some people would be very accepting, and other people would be, I'm sitting on the porch with a shotgun, and if I see anyone with an antenna, I'm going to blow it off.
And you just got a normal dude walking down, listening with the ghetto blast with a fraction too much fiction. Aerial sticking out the top. There's one there.
Take that.
Sorry, dude. I couldn't help myself. Premature sort of like trigger pulling. Spankin has said, it would not work. Humans would not adopt our differences, would separate us, and people would be too scared. It would separate society massively. Yes, I tend to agree with you. It would be an interesting problem to have, but would still be a problem. And of course, it's a question as to whether you get something from the aliens or whether you just got to look after them. So in District 9, they're refugees effectively, whereas in Alien Nation, the newcomers come down and they kind of integrate their way. It's a third race, as it were. So you got Caucasians, Hispanics, African Americans, and now these dudes. Yeah, sorry, dude.
Imagine if the aliens turned up and humanity as a group says, so is there a God? What's the afterlife? And they say, there is. His name is Avis, and now you all have to worship him.
Exactly right. So very, very cool. What's Avis from?
The Orville.
Oh, Yeah, okay, no worries. So very, very groovy. Anyway, so we don't know, but I tell you what, it would have some positives and some negatives all at the same time. But I tell you what, geez, it would make for some awesome conversations. Oh my God, bad dudes. Why are they bad? Are they good dudes? And you see them walking down the street, walking their dog.
Just imagine they monitored the broadcasts of Earth and happened to stumble on our channel, and then they made their appearance due to what we talk about. So everyone looked like Megan Fox and Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, we totally agree. And as Spankin said, there would be trust issues about all the probing and that. Yeah, exactly right. You see the alien walking down the street with this dog on a lead, and the next moment the lead is empty and the dog. I felt like a snack. What can I say? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, there's no answer. We'll have to wait and see. Guess what, fans? We've got 10 minutes left before we sign off for the night. Let's get on to the last. I've had this waiting here for ages. Customizable sci-fi card games, Mr. Aaron. Do you remember when this was a big thing in the 1990s? It went completely burko. 1994, now there was one prior to this, but 1994, science fiction card game, Star Trek, the Next Generation customizable card game. I know you've had some of these in the store. I'm just going to flick through some pictures. The amount of cards that people bought for these bloody games, Mr. Aaron, was freaking nuts. Do you remember this when it all came out?
Yeah, I spent my entire paycheck for months and months buying boxes of them. So, yes, I absolutely was one of those tragics that jumped on this one. And then this was the be-all and end-all of customizable card games. And they said, Star Wars is coming out. I'm like, flick off Star Trek. Who wants that anymore? There's a Star Wars one. And I really collected for about a decade all the different waves of these. I've still got a lot of the Star Trek ones and the Star Wars ones. Did I ever play them? No, they were too complicated. I couldn't be bothered learning the rules.
Well, it's very funny you should mention that. I've only ever played one game of the customizable card game, just literally one game with the Star Wars one. A mate of mine gave me his half a deck of his. I played one game and I won. Hang on. And I won, right? And I refused to play another game ever again because I have a 100% winning rate. I mean, never been beaten. How cool is that?
You're pretty good by doing that, because I tried to play the Star Wars one, and I went to a couple of I was living in Sydney at the time when it came out, and I went to a couple of card shops that hosted how to play events after the shop closed and stuff like that. And I kind of got it, and I was like, I just like collecting the cards. Why would I play with these cards? It's making them less mint. So they were a big deal. And in fact, after they lost the license, they were so popular that they kept, Decipher kept doing the tournaments for years and years and years after, because they had such a big fan base.
So for those who don't know how it works, the idea was like you get a special deck of cards, but you can customize them with different characters, and they have different strengths and different values. And I don't remember how the game actually worked. The idea was that you could actually, the stronger your cards, the better chance you had of winning. Now, you're talking about the Star Wars one here. Moneybag said they made Decipher, that was the company who made these things, made so much money from it. He still has his cards packed away somewhere. Like a lot of cards, you had to buy them in packs. And of course, you only ever wanted a certain amount, and there was some that were far more common than others. So people ended up with like thousands of doubles and spare ones sitting away. And as you can imagine, they're the Darth Vader, the Luke Skywalker ones, really, really powerful. I imagine if you had these in your deck, you could actually win many, many games. But of course, buying these cards was really hard, really expensive, because they were so uncommon. But it was amazing. And Star Wars is a good example, because they kept putting on expansion packs. They just added on and added on and added on. And I think people, once they went down this path, kind of felt a bit trapped. So you bought them just because you found them collectible. But did you get to a point when you said, you know what, enough's enough?
It was absolutely no. I bought them until they lost the license. They are absolute gambling, because the thing that you don't realize is they put common cards, uncommon cards, rare cards, and ultra rare cards in a deck. So when you collect like Scanlan's cards, they've got the same number of cards, every card. So if you buy a packet, you get like 2.5 sets. With these, because there's only one ultra rare card in each packet, and there's 36 packets in a box, and there was like hundreds of I think there's 300 cards in the first set or something. You could not get a full set by buying an entire box, and then you had to basically buy boxes and boxes and boxes, because you wouldn't get different cards in each box. I was literally getting my pay, going down to the card shop and spending $600 on boxes of cards to sort them out. The other side of that, though, the rare cards, some of them were going for hundreds of dollars each. So when I had Darth Vader, I'd pull another Darth Vader and the card shop would swap me a box of cards for the Darth Vader card, because they were selling that card for a couple of $100. It was a really totally false economy, because none of them are really worth anything now. And like a lot of collectibles, all of the really expensive ones that came out in the first couple of decks, they were the most popular decks when everyone was collecting. So they're really not rare or worth anything now. And the cards that came out in the last couple of decks, where not as many people were buying them, really impossible to get, because, you know, by that time people had, you know, there were 3,000 or 4,000 cards to a set, and people had run out of money and run out of space, and it wasn't as popular anymore. So we flicked through a couple of other ones there. I collected the X-Files ones. I collected the Doctor Who ones. I am a card tragic.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why, because like obviously Doctor Who came out afterwards, after Star Wars. So did you suddenly go, oh my God, now we've got freaking Doctor Who to worry about? Did that kind of like give you the red hot squirts or what?
Doctor Who, there was only one set because it wasn't very popular. The cards are pretty crap. And there was only really 3 rare cards that were hard to get. The 4th Doctor, of course, Davros, and the Doomsday Weapon, and all of those were, like you said, so powerful they would end the game. So if you can live without those 3, those ones are kind of easy to collect. I really liked the X-Files one. That was the one, I think, the game mechanics I enjoyed the most. But by that time, collectible card games were kind of on the way out, so not as many people collected that one either.
Wow. Chrissy said you had studied. Well, hang on. Hang on. I'll just get through this. You could study the rules and go play with someone else, and they would change the rules. It got very confusing and frustrating. I don't know if the rules carried over at all the different franchises, whether Star Trek rules could be just simply adapted for Star Wars, or whether they're completely different rules. I don't know. What was your question, man?
Firstly, they were completely different deck to deck. So they'd introduce the Hoth deck, and it would change all the rules for the old cards, and they'd retire cards because you couldn't play them anymore. I was going to ask, did you ever collect any of them or have any of them?
Nah. I remember when the Star Wars ones came out, because we were holding our Star Wars fan club meetings at the time, and one particular individual, he was like a representative with Decipher, got in bed with him somehow and started running competitions here. And people just started buying these sets because and learning how to play the game, because the prize was actually to go to America, be flown to America for some international tournament over there. And as it turned out, the guy who organized the tournament won the tournament and got to fly over to the US. So it was a big thing. Everybody was playing this everywhere, and it was just kind of nuts, because when you looked at a card by itself, you go, I really don't know what this is. And as I said, the amount of money that people were spending on buying cards, and you mentioned that, it was just completely out of control. There was no end to it. And then one day, it was just gone. So it was interesting.
And another company got the license for Star Wars and produced a crap game, so it just ended. But
Wizards of the Coast, I think. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, the one thing I have to say, which I really, really loved the Star Wars game for, it was produced in that era before the prequels. It was only when the special edition was kind of out and it was getting popular again. And up to that point, I'd seen sort of every photo that had ever been taken from Star Wars, because I was such a big fan. And what they did, they let Decipher into the Lucasfilm archives. And not only did they let them photograph pretty much every prop and every costume and everything they still had there, they actually said, okay, Decipher is going to name everything, and we're going to use those names officially as canon. And all of the backstory Decipher is going to make up, we're going to adopt as real in the Star Wars universe. So up until that point, there was a lot of ships, and there was a lot of weapons, and there was a lot of things that had appeared in Star Wars but never been named, and there was no really good publicity photos of them. And Lucasfilm worked with Decipher, and they created a whole universe, a Star Wars universe that was already there, but Decipher kind of pulled back this curtain and linked stuff up and gave it names. A lot of the Cantina aliens were named by the Decipher people. A lot of the weapons and stuff were named by Decipher. A lot of like the bounty hunter spaceships were all named by Decipher. So even though Decipher lost the license, those have stuck and become part of the expanded universe. So you've got to give them credit, not just for the game, but for being a cornerstone in the 90s for basically expanding the Star Wars universe so much.
Yeah, it's very funny because I would be surprised if anybody still collects or still has the Star Trek sets. I reckon some of those ended up in landfill. Guy said he collected the Jurassic Park sets. I didn't even know they did a Jurassic Park set. I've got this. I mean, as soon as you had a Tyrannosaurus Rex, you beat everybody. And Moneybag said they did do a release of Phantom Menace expansions, which was quite interesting. So it was an interesting part of history for those who lived through it. But it's all part of history.
I'll show you something, and Dags can vouch for this. I did not know we were going to talk about collectible card games today until earlier when he sent me through the run sheet of what we were looking at. I'm in my spare room and I have so many of these freaking cards. If you look on the floor, there is one just sitting on the floor down there that is just, sorry, it's like a mess.
We're live on TV, fans. Here we go.
I can't believe it, but I still pull folders and stuff out, and these cards fall out from everywhere because I just have that many of them sitting all over the place.
Yeah, they're a bit like Lego freaking bricks. You can never get rid of the damn things. They'll always be hiding up your vacuum cleaner somewhere. So anyway, it was an interesting part of history. Some people still love it. I assume there are still people playing it. But I think there's a lot of people who got cards and they got lumped with them, and then they couldn't get rid of them. And unfortunately, it ended badly. But for a period of time, it was the in thing, which is very, very cool. And I will tell you is the in thing, of course, and this is the most important thing of in things, of course, is Aaron's store as we get to the end of the episode. So don't forget, if you're going to do the Sunny Saturday next Saturday, that's 2 days' time, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it's just to the left of that particular photograph down the bottom there. But, of course, you've got to make sure you pop into Aaron's shop. Mr. Aaron, how excited are you? I heard a rumor that upstairs might actually be open this weekend as well.
I am I'm going back to the shop now, probably to work all night to be cleaning upstairs because I'm trying for the weekends up to Christmas to have a couple of extra rooms open full of merchandise and toys and collectibles and stuff. And because we don't have any room in the shop, we accumulate a lot upstairs. Dags has seen the madness up there. To get it to the point where you can get people in is a lot of work. But it does mean if people come in on the weekends, there'll almost be double the amount of stuff to see. So fingers crossed it'll be open for this weekend. If not, definitely the weekend after.
What was that mystery stain on the floor? Yeah, okay, let's...
So which one?
The one of many. Anyway, fans, guess what? It's the end of our penultimate episode. Next week is our season finale. At the very least, you got to pop your nose in and see us off. We don't even know if we'll even be back next year. We'll cross those bridges. First things first, though, come and see us on Saturday. Make sure you hang out with us. Go to the store, buy some stuff, then come back next Thursday and have some fun with us for one more hour. Mr. Aaron, anything else you want to add before we finish off?
Just follow the shop's Facebook page. We're having an advent calendar at the moment with a different bargain every single day. Really good bargains, 50% off, buy one, get one free, all that kind of stuff. So if you don't follow Aaron's Collectibles on Facebook or Instagram, check us out.
Absolutely love it. All right, fans, we're going to buzz off, leave you to a party hard. Make sure you stay nerdy, stay warm, stay hot, stay sweaty. And, of course, we'll see you all next week for our last episode of the year. All right, party hard and rock on. Take care.
Have a good night, guys.